General Muhoozi Kainerugaba as Chief of Defense Forces and his key acolytes in cabinet could grant him a vantage point to succeed his father in the long term, some analysts opine.
This is an entrenchment of Museveni with Museveni Jr. Whatever happens at the next election, holding all factors constant, you would be having more of Muhoozi people in the Legislative Assembly, more than any other political organization. So that means they're either deputy government in waiting or really the majority NRA.
This is an unprecedented CDF where factually and explicitly stated the CIC has trimmed his power and loaded them onto the CDF. This has not happened since the promulgation of the 1995 Constitution.
But for now, General Muhoozi's appointment appears to be a gambit by the president to knock the steam out of his loose political outfit, the Patriotic League, Uganda, and keep his son occupied with the affairs of the army ahead of the 2026 general election. On Friday, the president appointed his son to head the army, which occupies the superstructure of government, barely a week after Muhoozi addressed legions of his supporters in Masaka, many of whom had implored him to contest the 2026 presidency. To confirm the impassioned sentiments of his supporters, Muhoozi a year earlier had stirred the troubled waters when he pronounced on the microblogging website X that he would seek the presidency in 2026. It would put him at loggerheads with some of the president's key allies, including the Internal Affairs Minister, Major General Kahinda Otafire, an old comrade of Museveni in Fronasa and the Luwero Bush War. Otafire has been outspoken and warned about a creeping succession scheme to anoint Muhoozi as heir to the throne. However, a number of post-independence governments in Africa, both civil and military authoritarian governments, have carefully managed leadership transitions from the president to their next of kin. It is what analysts now claim gives Muhoozi, who is also the presidential advisor on special operations, access to material resources and imposing influence over the military political spectrum to craft both covert and overt succession structures. General Muhoozi assumes office at a time of the widest reforms within the UPDF, following the launch of the UPDF Establishment Document 2021 last month that gives the Chief of Defense Forces unfettered powers to preside over the armed forces. As Chief of Defense Forces, it is believed Muhoozi will have control over all security forces, which is significant given that historically the army in Uganda has played a key role in the country's turbulent and violent governance, which has been characterized by the absence of a peaceful handover of power since independence. According to a 2020 study of 46 African countries from 1960 to 2010 entitled Winning the Game of Thrones, Leadership Succession in Modern Autocracies, the key to a peaceful handover of power is wrought by incumbents empowering a designated successor through cabinet appointments that grant access to de facto power and resources to consolidate their power base. The evidence suggests that when those earmarked as successors are empowered, they have an incentive to become regime allies to ensure they succeed the incumbent, and this unity among the ruling elite is a bulwark against popular discontent amongst other regime threats. Cast in this light, Muhoozi's reappointment can be understood as a move towards regime consolidation, Dr. David Shimba, a political historian, reveals.
There is a deeper meaning to that. It may not mean as much grooming as it means protection of the status quo or navigating any likelihood of unpredictability, warding off any likelihood of unpredictability.
10 years after it was introduced into the public consciousness in 2013, following a leaked missive authored by then Spy Chief General David Sejusa, the Muhoozi project has been indicative of the dark clouds that have enveloped the skies in the race to succeed Museveni, a taboo discussion within the highest levels of the NRM. The study observes that the absence of a clear transition of power could spark conflict within the ruling party. To guard against this, the evidence suggests that incumbents designate successors who also act as an extra hurdle for those in the power struggle to contend with.
That the young man no longer listened to his father, and that his father was no longer in charge of him. So if then that was the theory, and so therefore that Muhoozi was genuinely threatening to overthrow his father in that process, then it would apply. I'm afraid that is absolutely not the case. And then whatever the case, what's the difference between a Museveni presidency and a Muhoozi presidency? There is absolutely nothing. It's a continuation of a family rule.
The 1995 Constitution designates the Vice President as next in hierarchy in case the President is incapacitated. But the Constitution, whose sanctity has been desecrated after the lifting of the presidential age limit as well as term limits, may not determine the sticky question of succession.
Uganda is definitely learning how not to be post-Gaddafi Libya. Uganda is learning how to avoid the post-Bongo Gabon. That trinity, full of unholy romance, developing in the West Africa, Mali, Guinea, and Niger. Uganda is learning not to be those cases. What is Uganda learning? Which cases is Uganda learning to be?
There is no shortage of historical events that bear parallels across Africa. For Nyasimbe succeeded his father Etienne Eyadama in Togo, while Ali Bongo Dimba succeeded his father Omar Bongo in Gabon. Mahmoud Idris Deby, a military officer who had taken part in counter-insurgency operations, succeeded his father Idris Deby in Chad, who was killed at the front line battling rebels in April 2021. And Joseph Kabila inherited the mantle after his father was assassinated in January 2001. But often such schemes may not crystallize, as was the case of Mobutu Kongolo, the son of Mobutu Sese Seko, the deceased president of Zaire, as well as Gamal Mubarak, the son of Egypt's deceased president Hosni Mubarak, and Saif al-Islam, the son of the deceased leader of Libya, Muammar Gaddafi.